Hello, I'm Dave Walker, former Comptroller General of the United States, founder and CEO of the Come Back America Initiative, and resident of the city of Bridgeport. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to be with you today to commemorate Constitution Day. I would love to have been with you in person, but unfortunately I had a long-standing commitment to give a speech at the National Press Club on Constitution Day. So I'm very appreciative of Mary Jane Foster and the University of Bridgeport allowing me to be able to do this taped piece for you. You know, this is being taped on September 11th, 2013, the 12-year anniversary of the tragic events of September 1, 2001. Most Americans and many people around the world will always remember that day, the tragedies of the day, and yet how people came together, both in this country and around the world, united in a common purpose. Unfortunately, 12 years that have passed, that unity is no longer there, both in our country and around the world. That represents both a challenge and an opportunity that we need to address. But now, returning to Constitution Day, September 17th is the 226th anniversary of the finalization of the U.S. Constitution in Philadelphia as part of the Continental Congress. In that day and in that process, the 13 states came together to be able to agree on a document that was unprecedented in the history of mankind. And in fact, in my view, and the view of many people around the world, the United States Constitution is the greatest political document in the history of mankind to date. What was it intended to do? It was intended to bring together a new nation based upon a set of principles and values. And it was also intended to create the first ever true democracy, but not a direct democracy, a republic. And as we know, a republic is a representative democracy where the people elect their representatives who then vote on their behalf to try to reflect the will of the people. The Constitution was adopted on September 17, 1787, but it took 2 more years for it to be ratified by the requisite 3/4 of the states. It's important to understand that the preamble of the Constitution actually was not actually voted on and wasn't even written until the Constitution was voted on by the delegates. But I think it's important to note what the preamble says, because it in effect represents the intent of the delegates to the Constitutional Convention with regard to this important document. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Very importantly, the most important words in the Constitution are the first 3. We, the people, are responsible and accountable for what our elected officials do and what they fail to do. In addition, as we look back over these 226 years, we'll see that the words establish, ensure, provide, and secure are different than the word promote. And what has happened over the years is the Constitution has evolved, and it will continue to evolve, but what shouldn't change are the principles and values on which our country was founded and that, quite frankly, made us great. Those aren't only embedded in the preamble, but they are also reflected in the debates of the delegates to the Constitution. Such things as limited but effective government, individual liberty and opportunity, personal responsibility and accountability, rule of law and equal justice under the law, fiscal responsibility and intergenerational equity, and stewardship. And what does that word mean? It means that as a leader, your job is not just to generate positive results today, not just to leave things better off when you leave than when you came, but to leave things better positioned for the future. And the American people have had a long-standing commitment to the concept of stewardship, but that commitment is now at risk because of some of the challenges that we face. The Constitution is represented by 7 articles. The first 3 are the most important. Article 1 deals with the legislative branch, we the people. Article 2 deals with the executive branch. And Article 3 deals with the judicial branch of government. So there was a separation of powers, in part because the representatives wanted to make sure that there was not a concentration of power, recognizing that the United States had defeated the most powerful military force in the world at that time, England, to gain its independence, and did not want to have anything approaching a monarchy in which there was a concentration of power. What's important is that the Constitution represents a true compromise in a number of different ways in order to bring the states together to form a more perfect union. For example, there was compromise with regard to the creation of the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate gave more relative representation to smaller states because each state got 2 senators, irrespective of their population and size, and the House represented relative population, a compromise. The selection of senators was determined by state legislatures at the time in order to try to protect states' rights. Again, a compromise. The capital of the United States was decided to be in the District of Columbia, now Washington, D.C., which was created through land being donated by 2 states, Maryland and Virginia. That was a compromise between the North and the South. In addition, there was a compromise over finances, and there was an agreement for the federal government to start issuing federal debt and to assume the debts of the states in order to get their support. And last, the most, frankly, inappropriate and arguably imperfect and inappropriate compromise, the compromise over slavery, which was not rectified until after a very bloody Civil War and the adoption of the 13th Amendment in 1865 that abolished slavery. If we look at what's happened since the Constitution was enacted, we've had 27 different amendments covering a broad range of topics. And if we look at where we are today as compared to the beginning of the Republic, we'll see that one of the things that's made our country so great is, in fact, this document. We are a country where we have the rule of law, where no person is above the law, and that this document has truly stood the test of time. At the same point in time, we can honestly say that there are certain areas in which we have not met the spirit of the Constitution, areas that need to be addressed, such as our nation's finances, such as the use of military power, such as personal privacy. These are challenges that we need to come to grips with in an appropriate and timely manner over time. The truth is also that government has grown too big, promised too much, and needs to restructure at the federal, state, and local level. And most of that will not involve changes to the Constitution. And yet, it's also true that as our founders feared, that what has happened over the years is that we've now found that we have 2 major political parties that basically control the political system. And as George Washington said, he refused to belong to a political party because he feared that one day the duty of loyalty to a political party may trump the duty of loyalty to the country. In addition, as the founders felt, it was appropriate to take people from different parts of society, whether they be farmers, whether they be ministers, whether they be business persons, entrepreneurs, whatever they might be, lawyers, and to take time away from their profession to serve the public interest in elective or appointed office, and then to return to the real world, the real economy, everyday life. But now what we see is a significant majority of our elected officials are career politicians, and that a growing percentage of the electorate in America are like myself, unaligned, unaffiliated, independent voters. Let's recognize our successes. The Constitution is a great document. Let's recognize that the United States arguably is one of the greatest countries in the history of mankind. And yet we must learn from history and learn from others. We must recognize our strengths, identify our weaknesses, and look for areas where we can learn from history and learn from others. And in my view, we need to recognize the reality that the time may have come for us to consider an Article 5 state-led constitutional convention to look at fiscal, political, and states' rights reforms. By doing this, we can make a more perfect union. By doing this, we can revitalize our democracy. By doing this, we can have a republic that is truly representative of and responsive to the people. And why should you, young people, care about this? Because I realize that people of all ages will be looking at this, but since it's a college campus in particular, younger people, not just from America, but around the world. Because it's your future. You have a stake. And it's not only important for the United States, it's important for the world. Because the United States is the leading economy on earth, and today it's the single sole superpower. That's today. It won't always be that for all time. But what happens here matters, not just for American Americans, for people all over the world. So let's recognize our successes, let's understand our challenges, and let's work together as we the people to do what it takes to create a more perfect union and to make sure that the future is better than the past. Thank you.